Welcome to Labmar Ferry Services. We are glad to have you on board the team. Just like any other team, all the members rely on one another to accomplish a goal. Whether it's to win a championship
Back to Ingram for the win. Yes!
or to fight a fire. Everyone has an important role to the team, and an opportunity may present itself where your team may rely on you. That is why it is important to know and understand the duties and responsibilities of the role assigned to you. One of those responsibilities is to be knowledgeable about the vessel you're assigned to. From mooring procedures to safety equipment, this educational video shall cover every topic. Catamarans. Starting off, we have our catamarans that run from Algiers Point to Canal Street. We have two of these vessels that are affiliated with the name RTA-1 and RTA-2. They are foot ferries, meaning they only carry pedestrians, bikes, and scooters, not cars and trucks. They are also sister vessels, so they are identical in dimensions, sharing a length of 104.7 feet in length, 24.3 feet in breadth, and about 5 feet of draft. The following locations make up the vessel. We have the bow, which is at the very front of the boat and is normally the first line tied off. It is also where the fuel connections are to take on fuel. We have the crew room where crew members can store their belongings and is the designated break area. If you ever find yourself taking a personal call step inside the crew room to do so. Next up, we have our cabin. That's the largest room on the boat. It is the primary area that passengers are seated. Just midship inside the cabin, you'll find two hatches that house the fuel tanks. And just outside the hatches are our accessible seating. Next room located inside the cabin is the wheelhouse. The wheelhouse is the room where the captain steers the vessel. It is also the muster station, meaning it's the meeting point for crew members during an emergency. Just outside the wheelhouse are the wing stations where the captain can steer from outside, giving him more visibility in that respective area. Just behind the wheelhouse is the top deck. The top deck is the second area where passengers are allowed to sit. If passengers are seated on the top deck, then a crew member must be positioned there monitoring the passengers. Moving along, we have our stern. The stern is normally the area where passengers are boarded. There's a bike rack for passengers to park their bikes. Bikes are not allowed inside the cabin as it can cause hazards. There are also 4 compartments found on the stern. The aft compartments are the steering compartments, and the forward hatches are the aft entrance to the engine rooms. The forward entrance to the engine rooms can be accessed through the double doors located inside the cabin. These double doors are also a disembarking point for passengers during larger trips and other circumstances. The engine rooms house both the engines and generators to supply power to the vessel. The carrying limitation is set at 135 passengers, and the crew consists of 3 deckhands, a mate, and a captain. A job safety analysis is a systematic process used to assess specific job tasks. The primary purpose of a JSA is to ensure that these tasks are completed safely by identifying potential hazards before they cause harm. By assessing all aspects of a task, including tools used and any environmental factors involved, we can mitigate risks that may cause accidents. First, the personnel who are participating in the task must get together and discuss the task at hand. They will break down the job step by step, and they will then identify any hazards associated with each step, as well as evaluate the risk of each step. And finally, they will incorporate safety control measures, such as personal protective equipment, company policies, and safety procedures that mitigate all these risks associated with the task. JSAs are extremely important as they help raise awareness about safety. It helps coworkers who may be new or unfamiliar to the job, and helps us take proactive action against these hazards to ensure everyone's safety. Mooring. Let's talk about our mooring lines and procedures, but first understand what mooring means. To moor a vessel means to secure it to a structure, our structure being a barge. Make sure that you always wear the proper safety equipment associated with line handling, which consists of steel toes, gloves, a personal flotation device, and a VHF radio. The catamarans have 6 cleats in total, 4 of them being located on the bow and 2 on the stern. Normal operation only requires the cleats on both port and starboard side. The forward cleats on the bow are for securing the boat when the vessel is taken out of service or other occasions, like when going to dry dock. The type of rope used to secure the boat is polypropylene rope. It is strong and abrasive resistant, has a good resistance against acids, and good UV resistance. Despite all of those great factors, the line can break under too much strain. So, you want to inspect mooring lines before going into service. Know the three parts to your line, which consists of the eye, the splice, and the slack. To properly inspect a line, grab one end of the line and run the line through your hand until you reach the other end of the line. Check for any broken strands, chafing, or any other damage to the line. If the line is in bad condition, then it must be replaced. The extra mooring lines can be found on the bow of the vessel, located in the compartment on the starboard side. Line inspection is important. Weak lines can part and can be deadly if someone were to be in the snapback zone. The bow person's job is to guide the captain to the bit by making call-outs via VHF radio when approaching the bits. When the boat is making an approach to its destination, the bow person must make call-outs from the line to be thrown. They give the distance the boat is away from the barge and the distance that they must come up to meet the bit. The closer the boat gets, the more the bow person must guide them in with call-outs.
All right, Captain, need you to come up about 15 more feet. 10 more feet to come up. All right, straight abreast. All right, Cap, we about 15 wide. 10 wide. Bob to touch up.
Once the boat is close enough to the bit, slightly lean over the rail and grab the line with both hands. Spread the line out so that it can go around the bit. Never lean too far over the rail, as it may result in falling overboard. Once the line is over the bit, inform the captain and step away from the line to avoid the snapback zone. From here, the captain has visual on the line by using the camera and can begin backing into the line. Inform the captain that the line is tight and stand by as the captain shoves into the line, forcing the stern in. Never leave the line unattended while the vessel is being moored. Once the boat is fully pressed against the dock, the deckhand on the stern can now throw their line onto the bit and pull their line tight, and go with an aft lead around the cleat. Secure the line with 3 figure-8s and a half hitch or 2 figure-8s and 2 half hitches. Disembarking. After the vessel has been moored, the captain will make their announcement that the passengers may now exit. The deckhand on the stern will open the gate on the boat and let down the gangway. One important thing to know is that the gangway on the canal side requires 2 people. The fare collector must assist with the ramp on the canal side. The Algiers landing has a lighter ramp and only requires 1 person. If on the Algiers side, once the ramp is down, the deckhand on the stern will step onto the barge and open the yellow gate and stand near it as passengers exit. If on the canal side, then after letting down the gangway step onto the port quarter and guide traffic onto the barge. The fare collector will step off the boat with the money cart on both sides. This is to control the flow of traffic when boarding. The bow person will step inside the cabin and monitor the cabin as everyone is disembarking. They will conduct a security sweep in the cabin to make sure everyone is clear of the cabin and to report any suspicious packages left behind.
Hey, Cap, reporting a passenger left their bag.
They will notify the crew that the cabin is clear, and the captain can check their camera on the top deck to see if any passengers remain on the top deck. This is also the period where the bow person can do their hourly engine room inspection and can log it in the engine room inspection log. Once all passengers are off the collector, we'll signal the deckhand standing next to the gate to begin letting passengers on. boarding. While boarding on Algiers side, the stern person will guide the traffic towards the fare collector and visually inspect passengers as they walk by. They are doing quick scans for anything that can pose a threat to the integrity of the vessel or anything that can inflict harm onto others. If boarding on the canal side, then the stern person can stand on the port quarter to guide the traffic. The collector will collect fare from the barge on both sides and grant access to paying passengers. Always control the traffic and never let guests pass the money cart without any interaction. The bow person will be positioned inside the cabin, observing passengers as they walk in. They are to make sure passengers try not to gain entry to unauthorized areas. A beneficial tip to prevent passengers from opening doors to unauthorized areas is to dog down the doors or lock them. The captain can view the camera and watch passengers on the top deck. Departure. Once it is time to depart, the captain will sound the horn. Make sure no action is taken until the captain gives the departure signal, meaning stay at your posted area. Once the captain sounds the horn, you can now close the gate and leave your post to man the lines. Each deckhand must be on board the vessel after the horn is sounded. Once positioned at the lines, await the captain's orders to untie line. The stern person unties their line first and communicates it to the rest of the crew. The captain then relieves tension on the bow line so that the bow person can grab their line using the spike pole. The collector will relay the passenger count to the captain before departing.
30.
Underway. After untying the stern line, the deckhand on the stern will notify the captain if any river traffic is approaching the Algiers point. This will help the captain plan their course of action to get to the other landing safely. The stern person will then walk to the top deck and monitor the passengers up top, making sure everyone is seated. The bow person will then take off their line and inform the captain that all lines are off and proceed to look out on the bow for any debris or small crafts that the captain may not see. The fare collector will complete their paperwork inside the cabin so that they can also monitor the cabin. When nearing the destination, the stern person can head to their line as well as the bow person so that they can moor the vessel. That covers just a few of your duties, but let's get into knowing your vessel. There is life-saving equipment throughout the vessel in case of emergencies. You want to take the time to familiarize yourself with all the locations and functions of each piece of equipment. For instance, there are 8 calling stations throughout the vessel. There are 2 different types of calling stations, one that can dial other stations, and the other that can only call directly to the wheelhouse.
Come in, Cap. Come in, Cap. You hear me?
To call a station, dial the number of the station you are trying to reach and wait for someone to respond on the other end.
Wheelhouse.
Hey, Cap. I've been trying to reach it on the radio.
If calling from the station that directly calls the wheelhouse, simply press the middle button.
Hey, Cap, you on the radios upstairs?
Yeah, I got the radio upstairs.
Alright, coming up to get them.
The catamarans have a total of 3 ring buoys, 1 found on the bow and 2 found on the stern. These devices are used to keep people afloat when in water. This can give the crew time to retrieve a person who has fallen overboard. The ring buoys are either equipped with a lifeline or a marker light. The marker light is great for nighttime operations as it flashes once deployed in water. This makes it easier to spot the person overboard during restricted visibility. The lifeline is used to pull the ring buoy back to the person who has thrown it. This can be effective in pulling the person to safety. When throwing a ring buoy to a person in distress, be sure to throw it near them and not directly at them. You can use the current to your advantage, as it can push the ring buoy closer to the target. Once the person overboard grabs the ring buoy, you can begin to pull them towards you using the lifeline. This brings us to our next piece of equipment, the Sea Hero Man overboard system. We have two of these systems located midship on both port and starboard side. The components that make up the Sea Hero system is the davit, the man overboard ramp, and the rescue equipment. This system requires 3 people, 1 crewmate working the winch, which can be accessed from the top deck, another crew member at the man overboard ramp, and another crew member assembling the rescue equipment. Life vests can be found underneath the seating inside the cabin. There are placards posted throughout the vessel on instructions on how to don a life vest. The children life vests can be found in the back of the cabin. The life vests on the top deck are found inside of a locker positioned in front of the seating. Next up, we have our fire stations on board the vessel. The catamarans are equipped with 2 fire stations, Station 1 being located on the port bow, and Station 2 is located on the starboard quarter. There is a total of 5 fire alarm pull stations inside the vessel. When pulled, the alarm can be heard throughout the vessel, including the engine room. There are 5 fire extinguishers on board the vessel, 1 in the wheelhouse, 2 in the cabin, and 2 just outside the engine room hatches. The engine rooms are equipped with a fixed fire extinguishing system that can be deployed from outside the engine room. That concludes our Canal Street operation. Now let's get into our Chalmette operation. The motor vessel Thomas Jefferson operates on the Lower Algiers to Chalmette route. It is a vehicle ferry being able to carry both vehicles and pedestrians. The crew consists of 4 deckhands, an engineer, a mate, and a captain. The Thomas Jefferson weighs 477 gross tons, has a length of 142.4 feet, 54.1 breadth, and has 8 feet of draft. It can hold up to 30 vehicles. The carrying limitation changes based on vehicles on board the vessel. When 21 or more vehicles are on board the vessel, a maximum of 186 passengers are allowed on the vessel. When 20 or fewer vehicles, a maximum of 406 passengers allowed on the vessel. The maximum weight limit of a vehicle is 20,000 pounds. Any vehicle that exceeds the weight limit shall be turned around. There are yellow markings along the road that can be used to measure vehicle length and can be used to stop a vehicle so that traffic behind them may proceed. The components that make up the vessel are the bow, which is equipped with 2 aprons on both port and starboard side. It is where vehicles and passengers both board and disembark the vessel. The bow is used to park larger vehicles that wouldn't be able to make the turn. We have the midship that consists of 2 lanes. These lanes are used to move and park oncoming traffic. When vehicles are boarding, it is recommended to have them drive on the outside lane so that they can make wide turns. The stern, where vehicles can make wide turns to easily enter either lane. And the skiff can be found on the stern. Next, we have the upper engine room. In this room, you'll find the emergency generator and the engineer's office. It has 2 stairwells that lead to the engine room. The engine room is the lowest level on the boat, and it extends from the bow to the stern. The crew room can be found on the port side main deck, and the stairwell just behind the crew room leads to the passenger area. There are stairs that lead to the top deck in the event passengers may need to evacuate to safety. Next, we have the wheelhouse where the captain is stationed, and just outside the wheelhouse is the top deck. The top deck isn't open to passengers, but in an emergency, the top deck can be used as a point of refuge. Now let's cover our daily operation procedures. Boarding. Before going into boarding procedures, the required PPE is a life vest, gloves, steel toes, a handheld radio, and a traffic wand. While boarding, the fare collector is collecting from the barge. They are positioned in between the two traffic cones just before the gate. The bow person is positioned on the bow in the safe zone. The stern person and the fourth deckhand are positioned in the stern's corners, guiding the oncoming traffic. This way, every angle of the boat is covered. The captain is scouting the traffic far ahead to notify the crew when large vehicles are approaching. The mate is on deck supervising the boarding operations. Once the fare collector collects the fare, they direct the vehicles to drive onto the boat. The bow person guides the first car to drive around the stern. The stern person and the fourth deckhand are guiding the traffic as well, staying in their posted areas. After guiding the first car, the bow person will then walk to the other side of the boat to park the first two cars. The fare collector can hold traffic if necessary. After parking the first two cars, the bow person positions themselves where they are visible on the bow and begins to focus on parking the bow. The fourth deckhand steps away from the starboard quarter and continues parking the cars along the starboard side. The stern person slightly shifts towards the skiff so that they can guide oncoming traffic and can also see the fourth deckhand. This way, they can see if they need to stop oncoming traffic. Once the fourth deckhand makes their way to the skiff, the stern person begins parking the rest of the cars, and the fourth deckhand is now positioned at their station. Underway. When ready to depart, the captain sounds the PA system signaling the deck crew to go to their stations. The fare collector lowers the traffic arm and closes the gate. The mate heads to the wheelhouse. Once the fare collector makes it on board the vessel, the bow person lifts the apron. After the apron is lifted, the stern person unties their line and signals the bow person that their line is untied. The bow person then signals the captain, who then sounds the horn and shoves forward to relieve tension from the bow line. The bow person can now untie their line. The fare collector gives their trip count to the captain and parks the fare box in the safe zone. They then head to the crew room to do their paperwork. The other deckhands may sit inside the crew room until nearing the dock, but one deckhand must be patrolling the deck, ensuring that all passengers are safe. The mate is conducting watchkeeping while the captain is at the wheel. If the mate isn't present, then a crew member could serve as watchkeeper instead. They are to look for traffic, debris, or any hazards that could jeopardize the integrity of the vessel. The engineer is monitoring the engine room periodically to ensure all equipment is in working order. When approaching the dock, the bow and stern person head to their lines to prepare to moor the vessel. The mate walks down to the main deck to direct daily operations. Mooring. The bow person prepares to throw the bow line when approaching the dock. When near the bit, the bow person tosses the line over the bit and goes with an aft lead around the kevel. They start by placing 3 figure-8s on the kevel and allow the boat to fall back into the line. As the boat falls back into the line, it tightens as it comes under load. The bow person pays out slack so that the apron can line up perfectly with the ramp. When paying out slack, be sure to grab 3 to 4 feet from the line to avoid pinch points. Once the apron is lined up with the ramp, they can secure the line with a half hitch. This way, the boat can fall back into the line without the line slipping. The stern person then secures their line with 3 figure-8s and a half hitch. They then signal to the bow person that their line is secured, and the bow person signals to the captain that the boat is secured to the dock. The captain uses the PA system to signal to the bow person that they can lower the apron to begin the disembarking process. Once the apron is lowered, the fare collector steps off and positions the money cart in between the two traffic cones on the barge. They then proceed to open the traffic gate. At this point, everyone should be on standby at their posted areas. After opening the traffic gate, the collector signals to the bow person to start letting off vehicles. The bow person disembarks the bow. Once all vehicles are off the bow person proceeds to disembark the first few vehicles on the midship, and then they get in position to start guiding oncoming traffic. The fourth deckhand continues disembarking the stern, and the stern person unloads the last few vehicles, if any. They then get back into position to start the boarding procedures. Life-saving equipment. There are 2 life floats that can be found on the top deck. Each life float can hold up to 12 people. There are 4 ring buoys in total, with 2 located on the top deck, and 2 are located on the main deck. As mentioned earlier, there is a rescue boat located on the stern of the main deck. When the rescue boat is deployed, 2 crew members must be in the rescue boat. The engineer operates the winch. Another crew member stays on board the vessel to assist with retrieval of the rescue boat out of the water. The Thomas Jefferson requires a total of 670 life vests. The life vests on the main deck can be accessed in a storage bin attached to the bulkheads on both port and starboard side. The life vests in the passenger area are in storage lockers with the quantity labeled on the outside. Firefighting equipment. There are a total of 7 fire stations throughout the vessel, 1 being on the top deck, 2 can be found in the passenger area, 2 on the main deck, and 2 in the engine room. The main deck has a sprinkler system that can be activated by the engineer. They can control which area the sprinkler system activates by opening the valve to that respective area. There are a total of 16 fire extinguishers throughout the vessel. The CO2 room can be found in the passenger area, just after the entrance to the wheelhouse. This room contains portable fire extinguishers, along with the CO2 cylinders that deploy directly to the engine room spaces. The CO2 system can be activated from the main deck on the starboard side. There are 6 fire dampers that lead into the engine room spaces. There are 4 on the bow just above the ring buoy, 2 on both port and starboard side. And lastly, there are fire axes placed around the engine room and wheelhouse. That concludes our video for today. Take the information learned here and become better mariners so that you can ensure your own safety as well as others. Thank you. And once again, welcome to Labmar Ferry Services.